I'm also starting the live stream, so we will get this pop-up. Just press on got it and don't leave. Yep.
All right, all right, all right. Greetings, everyone. We are right now at India's largest student community, BlueLearn, and we have people joining from across the country. We have people from Haryana, Bangalore, Maharashtra, Punjab, Goa, Orissa, Jharkhand, Lonavala. Awesome. Okay, so today we have a great story to tell. We have a great person with us. Uh, like we'll be starting the minute. We'll be starting the event in just like a minute. But before that, let me just tell you about the guest today, Mohit Bhandari. Mohit, he's been a great person as per the conversations that I've been having with him from the last few days. Let me tell you something. He is a product and a business person who already worked in a company, who already interned in a company like Cred, and now co-founded and the CEO of a company which just talks about manage your investments like the ultra rich do. I'm talking about Stratzy. So Stratzy has raised $800,000 recently, and it's not about the investment. It's about the future of money is what we're going to discuss in this very conversation between me and Mohit. Mohit, welcome to Blue Learn.
Hey, thank you so much, and then really excited for this topic, right? And yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. Excited to be coming back to the Blue Loan community. It's always so much energy here, and I love talking to young people, and especially the Blue Loan community. These are some of the best people in India who
Mhm.
want to build something, who want to create something, learn more. So yeah, excited to be here.
Awesome. And as people say, your background was really, really cool. And let's start with a basic question. Where did this idea of, let's say, where do you see the finance going? Let's get straight on to the point. The future of money. Where do you see it?
Correct, correct. So I have a presentation,
Sure,
and if you want, I can just share it, and then we can just chat along with it. So
definitely.
yeah, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, it is clearly visible.
Yeah. So let's talk about the future of money today, how it has evolved over time, and we'll start off with initially, what was money, right? So initially, when there was no concept of money, and you need to understand that we really require money as a medium of exchange, right? So if you go out and you want to buy something, you require money. Initially, it was not the case. You didn't have paper money or notes. So what people used to do was they used to follow a barter system, right? You give me a goat, I'll give you fruits, right? And that's how the people used to trade. Now there were many drawbacks of this. You want two people requiring the same thing with each other. So if the guy doesn't wanted a goat, he had no other option. And then there wasn't a common measure of value. Now, let's say this goat is being traded for this much fruits, but if she just wants half of these fruits, she cannot trade half the goat, right? So it's also indivisible and not a good store of value. The reason being, the goat will require some form of, you need to feed it. You require space to keep it. It's degrading over time. It'll grow old, right? So not the best way to store a value, right? And that's why people started using metallic money, right? So this is initially, how people used to do. They used to create these small coins, and the heavier the coin was, the better or the more things you'll get out of the market, right? And that's how it got started. After that, it shifted towards the focus on count. So instead of that, it was printed, it was stamped by a king. And now what happens is, the more money that you have, the more number of coins that you have, the more things you can buy from it, right? So that's how people started transitioning with the money, right? So that's how we started seeing money as that. Okay, it's a coin which has the stamp of a king on top of it, right? And it is accepted all over the kingdom, right? So if you have that coin and you can go anywhere in the kingdom, you can buy anything that you want. Everything will have a price, let's say 3 coins, 4 coins, 5 coins, right? And that's how it used to be. But then soon we figured out that this is a painting of a treasure being carried. That coins are not the best way to actually kind of transact. The reason being they're so heavy. You'll need multiple coins, and you'll need like lakhs, crores of coins if you want to do a big deal. Like let's say between two kings, if you want to buy or sell land, you'll require so many people going and just carrying money, which also kind of made it easy to get stolen. Like people were trying to steal these coins and all. It was not the best thing to do. That's why we shifted to paper money, right? The first paper money was in China. Now, what this money was basically a bank entity. They said, okay, here's a note that we issue to you, right? It was an entity like a bank, and they said, okay, we are issuing this note to you, and when you come back to us with a note, we'll give you this much amount of gold or silver against the note, right? So this was a entity which created this model. And then what started happening was people started going to these entities more and more. That is when the kind of government started supervising it, right? And this system kind of became our current banking system, right? So later what the government thought was, at the same time, the kings have been demolished, the governments have been formed, right? There's a kind of a democracy in the world right now, right? We need to understand this too. So now there's a government, and people are saying ki, okay, let's start printing our own money. Our country will have our own money, and instead of promising to pay in gold or silver, will say ki India has a currency called rupee, and we'll be printing these rupee paper notes, and we'll be using them as a legal tender, or using it as a note, or using it as a legal currency to transact anywhere in India. Right? And this is what started happening all over the different countries, right? And this was a concept of, in government we trust. Right? So it was like, okay, we trust our government of India. We believe that they are going to give us 1 rupee note, and it has the value of 1 rupee, and that's how things started going around. Now this whole system, which started with the first paper money in China, and by these bank type entities, converted into what we have the current banking system, right? It created this whole, so many banks are there who control a large sum of money. This is, by the way, BKC or Bandra Kurla complex in Mumbai, where most of the banks are there. So this basically got converted into such a big such big institutions handling so much amount of power and money, uh, that banks became a very critical institution for governments, for capitalists, for people running the government, right? And that is how we started seeing money. Now this is the modern money that you see, right? So now you have credit cards, you have currency, you have things like UPI payments infrastructure, right? You can just kind of pay anyone that you want through UPI, through your phone itself. And 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 this is how you see money but let's talk about the challenges these modern money have, right? So the first challenge is that these are somewhat centralized, right? So if they are not handled correctly, right, it can lead to hyperinflation. So what happens is, back in the days when the first notes started being printed, a war happened, right? A Napoleon War happened, and then the country, they said, okay, what we'll do? We'll print more money because we need to give more money, and so we started printing more and more notes, which basically led to devaluation of the currency itself, right? So these things happen, wars happen. There are some economic policies that might happen, and that would eventually kind of destruct the economy of a country, right? So that is because of the central government controls the money supply, so they can kind of play around with it. And we have seen that happening in Venezuela, Zimbabwe, where there was hyperinflation coming in, and there can be global currency wars. Now, if you want to transact with someone in US, there's so many intermediaries, right? So it's your Indian bank which gets money transferred to the US bank, and then he'll take money from the US bank. So peer to peer is actually not possible, and centralization kind of makes it easy to abuse, right? And we have seen that with actually every stage of money, right? So initially with coins, they have been abused. People, what they used to do was, they used to melt it and keep the weight same by mixing some other metals on top of it and create more coins, right? So, and the same happened with paper money. There is cases of forgery and all, where people print duplicate notes, and that's how they get into the system. So centralization makes it easy to abuse, and this abuse happened in the 2008 financial crisis, right? We saw the housing crisis. The sole reason being that the banks, they have so much control over the money, right? Because of the paper structure of it, they have so much control over money that if they have some policies which are not good, right, for the economy, it can have negative impacts, and that's how the financial crisis started. So coming back to the same point, right? The challenges of modern money that we see right now is that centralization makes it easy to abuse, and this abuse happened in 2008 financial crisis. If you guys haven't watched, I would recommend to watch the Big Short movie. It's an amazing movie which will help you understand what happened in the 2008 financial crisis. It didn't affect India much, but in US it had a pretty big impact, right? And this this crisis led to someone called Satoshi Nakamoto think about money differently, right? So he published this paper which is called Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. So he prints this paper. This is the first page of the paper, and this Satoshi Nakamoto is someone we don't know who that guy is, right? He's anonymous. It could be a person, multiple person. It could be male, female. You don't know who that. It's just a name, right? And the main idea of this was to actually take out the abuse part, right? So, motivated by the 2008 financial crisis, Bitcoin was born. Initially, it was called a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, where basically, if you want to transact with someone, you don't have to trust multiple currencies, go through multiple intermediaries on banks and stuff, and you should be able to do it as you go and as you want, right? So that was one thing. The other thing was if it could have a store of value and all. So, but that's the story, right? So we started off with the barter system. We faced many difficulties with the metal money because it was difficult to carry. It was not easy to take. And paper money came in, which again led to various other problems, like people printing more money and stuff, people forging money, and then we have the modern money, which is kind of stable. We have so many infrastructures in place. We have big institutions like banks handling so much amount of capital. But then the challenges of modern money was that centralization makes it easy to abuse, and all of the other challenges led to 2008 financial crisis, which basically led Satoshi Nakamoto to think about money differently, right? And that's how Bitcoin was born. Now let's see, what Satoshi's vision was. How did he reimagine money, right? So the first thing he said was, then let's make it decentralized. Right now, what happens is the closer you are to the money, the more chances are that you'll be well off. What I mean by that is, the governments print the money, they give it to their own government institutions and their known people, let's say politicians and all, and then the money kind of trickles down to people who are not that financially included in the society, right? So people closer to the place, or people closer to the system where money is being printed, actually have lots of power, right? So that was Satoshi's first thing. Let's make it decentralized. How do they do it? They run basically various nodes, or nodes are basically system of computers running which are validating a transaction. So they basically took the job of banks out, because what is the job of a bank, right? So if I'm giving 10 rupees to you, bank needs to make sure that okay, they have to minus 10 from my account and give plus 10 to your account, right? And that job was being done in blockchain. That's a whole separate technology, which requires much more detailing and all. But today we'll see how right? We will understand how did Satoshi reimagine it. So Satoshi said, let's make it decentralized. We'll create a peer-to-peer network which is powered by blockchain technology, which actually can make it decentralized. There is no central party in control. The other thing is digital, so it's highly accessible. Now, if I go out, I don't have my wallet, so I cannot, access money because I don't have the cash. But if it's digital, it's much more accessible, right? So I can like go to Europe And if I have my phone with it, I can pay with these digital currencies, right? And whereas the other kind of thing is, if you're going to Europe, you have to talk with multiple banks to either, like, the first thing is you do a forex transaction, right? You give INR, you take euros, or the other thing is you make a card, euro debit card, sort of a traveling card, which again requires involvement of banks and stuff, right? So it makes it difficult. And that was the second thing he said. This is digital, this is highly accessible. The other thing, it's highly divisible, right? So remember when we talked about the barter system, and we said, it was not divisible, because if I want to trade one goat for half the food, I cannot cut my goat into half, right? So this is not the case with digital Bitcoin, right? Because highly divisible, you can buy 0.00001 Bitcoin or something, right? So precision to very extreme small levels is there, right? So that was the third thing. The other thing was, he said, you know, let's operate this in a confidential and pseudonymous manner, where people don't know the exact identities of people. So when you open a bank account, uh, you have to do certain processes. You have to verify the identity of the person who is opening the account. So digital bank, neobanks coming in, was the case, right? You have to go to the bank. And I remember going to bank with my father and sitting there for like an hour, where they're just talking and trying to, figure out stuff. So that is how, it was initially. So he said, let's keep it confidential, let's keep it pseudonymous. We can transact in an opaque way. No one can know my identity, right? And I have this digital money which has some value, but no one knows who owns that, right? That was one thing. Then the other thing was frictionless. It's global. There are no intermediaries. There are no barriers to entry. So let's say some bank in a small country in Europe, they might have a requirement that you can only open a bank account with us if you have more than $1 million, or if you are European. We don't open bank accounts for Indians or something on those lines, right? But that's not the case with this money that Satoshi is visioning, right? So the money that he's visioning, it's frictionless. It's across the world. It's global. There's no intermediaries. You can transact with anyone you want. There are no barriers to entry. Any person, any skin, any color, any financial background, any kind of family they might be coming from, they can have access to this money. History of money, you'll understand initially, as I said, right? The closer you were to the money. So governments were printing money. They had access to money and they were giving it to their people. So initially, when there was a caste system, they made sure that the lower caste don't get money that easily. And but that is not the case with Satoshi's vision. He's saying, let's make it frictionless, let's make it global. There should be no barriers. Okay, that's how he's visioning it. Now it's also scarce. He's saying it's limited in quantity, so I cannot print money whenever I want. So if I'm on a war, and what governments do, they just print money, which kind of devalues the currency a bit. Now no government wants to do that, but there might be conditions, or there might come times where they have to do that, right? So they started that. So he said, this is limited in quantity. So Bitcoin is only 21 million in circulation. And there's something also called Bitcoin halving. Every 4 years, it becomes more scarce, right? There's a methodology to that too. And he said, this is limited quantity. It's deflationary. And you cannot just print Bitcoin out of thin air. So that was his thing. Then it said it's verifiable. So right now, if you want to get access to someone's transactions, right? So if government wants to access, let's say, my bank account transaction, they can ask my bank, and my bank will give all my transactions to the government. But if some other person goes to the bank and says, they want to access my transaction, they won't get it, right? Because government have the power, they control everything. RBI control the banks, they RBI regulate the bank, so they can ask for any kind of data, which is not the case in his vision. So Satoshi's visioning, anyone can come, they can see, okay, this transaction is being done, and anyone that the data is basically in the blockchain, and anyone can come and they can check it from the blockchain, right? So it's truly transparent, right? So the identity is not transparent, the identity is opaque, but at the same time, the transactions happening or the record or what we call the ledger, right? That Mohit gave 10 rupees to you, so minus 10 to Mohit's account and plus 10 to your account. This thing is verifiable. It's recorded in the blockchain. So that was his vision. Then it's irrevocable. So once you have done the transaction, there's no way to actually revoke it, right? Which might not be a good thing, but then this is what the technology he built was, right? So this was Satoshi reimagining money, right? And this happened after the abuse of the money cave in 2008, and he printed this. Sorry, he wrote this research paper. By the way, I would recommend everyone to go and read this research paper. It's a very short research paper. Anyone can go and read it, and you'll understand a lot what Satoshi's vision was. So that's how Satoshi visioned money, and that's how Bitcoin was born. Now the use cases of what are the use cases of this technology? The first thing is it's a store of value, sort of, right? The reason we remember when we talk, some commodities in the barter system, they are not the best store of value because they require space, they degrade over time. You might have to spend resources on that, right? So the best, I'll give an example, right? During the barter system, there was a singer who went to Africa, and at that time, Africa was using barter system. So instead of paying fees, he was paid cattle and grain, right? So what happened was the cattle ate all the grains, right? So now he was left with no grains, and then the cattle died while he was going back to Europe, right? So he basically all of the work that he did, it couldn't be stored in a value, right? And it got disappeared because that was the case. Now this case, Bitcoin, you don't require space. It's electronic. It's in the blockchain, right? It's in the code. It's digital. So you don't require space to hold it. It won't degrade over time, right? The reason being, you are not printing more bitcoins, right? So if you're not printing more bitcoins, the value of it will not decrease over time, right? Which we like to call deflationary, right? So it's not inflationary, it's deflationary. Whereas the money that we hold, as government prints more money, the value of that currency decreases, right? So that's how people started seeing it. Okay, this is a store of value. Probably if I put my money into this, we can think of this as a store of value. So that's how people got started. Then the other thing is it has payment rails, right? So you can pay each other in Bitcoin. So if I want to buy a house, if I want to buy something, I can just do the transaction digitally, and there are no intermediaries involved, right? Remember, because there are no banks. This is global peer-to-peer electronic cash, right? So that is what Satoshi was envisioning, right? So you can pay anyone with Bitcoin across the globe, and no one will be able to kind of stop it, right? There are no banks, no intermediaries, and this is accessible to everyone, right? That is something that he said. Then the ledger is basically the verifiable data, as we talked about, right? So everything is in the blockchain. Everything is in the blockchain. You guys can go and check out the transactions happening in the blockchain, and everyone can verify it. So all in all, this was kind of disrupting the banking system, because this is what banks used to do, right? You used to take your money and say, we are storing it. This is a store of value. Then they were the one facilitating the payments, and then the ledger, right? They used to keep a ledger that, okay, this guy paid A paid B 10 rupees, so I have to do minus 10 from A and plus 10 to B. So now all of this is being done in the blockchain itself, and this is what Satoshi has envisioned, right? This is him reimagining money after what happened in 2008 financial crisis, right? So now the story gets interesting, right? Um, so digital currency can be an electronic store of value, especially in countries where local currencies are volatile or losing value, right? So very interesting picture here. So this is $200 in Abuja, Nigeria. After their currency got devalued, you can see there's so many notes in there, right? So and then people are using it for like holding stuff. And this happened in Venezuela too. People were using notes as just paper, right? Because imagine if there's a 5 rupee note, right? And it doesn't have a 5 rupee value. Instead, the value of it is even less than the value of the paper itself. Right? So that is what the case became in these countries. The reason being, central governments control money. They could have destructive monetary policies, which could lead to destruction. There could be global currency war. There could be various other things, right? Which governments can do wrong, which can lead to destruction of wealth for these countries. So imagine if you were living in Zimbabwe and all your life you worked hard to earn 1 million Zimbabwe dollars, right? And then that kind of devalued in and it kind of devalued over time. So you lose all the hard work that you do to earn that money, right? So that's really bad, right? And for these countries, digital currency could be a source of value, right? It has we talked about these things. It's limited supply. It's easy to move, right? So initially we even talked about the coins, right? But even with notes, if you have to carry it somewhere, you have to probably take bags and bags of coins. Initially, what happened in the kingdom era, right? Has showed that yeah, this printing. This is how they used to carry things. And then even with notes, I think you must have seen, people carrying bags of cash in movies and all, the smugglers and all. But yeah, so no storage cost. It's easy to move. It's durable because it's in the blockchain. It's powered by the blockchain technology, and and let's say your notes are or your money is kept in a bank and a bank gets looted, so your money is gone. But it is not the case with Bitcoin probably, right? Now it's also highly divisible, so transactions can happen easily. So all in all, this is what could have prevented this kind of a financial crisis in these countries, right? And that is what Satoshi was envisioning. He was reimagining money. He was trying to figure out, how can we probably make it more decentralized, and that is what he came up with, right? So that was Satoshi's vision. Now let's talk about how far that vision has come along, right? So the crypto hype is taking over. We all have heard of cryptocurrencies. Probably some of you also own these cryptocurrencies. You can see India, China, all across the world, right? People are believing in Satoshi's vision. They're believing that this could actually have a store of value, because even if it's $1, think of it this way, electronic, basically some code written on people's computer, or people's computer CPU power powering a network, it has some value, right? And people are giving it, even if they are giving it $1, it means it is some sort of store of value, right? I'm not saying it should be 1 million or 100K store of value. It could be anything, but the just the case that people are believing in it shows that this technology has some good aspects to it, right? So Bitcoin and the underlying technology has surely taken the world by storm. There are thousands of different cryptos and uses of blockchain technology. And right now, as you know, there are so many tokens out there, right? Ethereum, Ripple, we must have not even heard of hundreds of these names, right? And then there's a thing that in future these tokens could have different use cases. These digital currencies could have various other use cases, right? So just to give an example, let's say McDonald's come up with its digital currency, and what they say is, people holding McDonald's coin will get 50% discount in all McDonald's outlet. Right? So now this kind of becomes a different use case, right? Where people have been using this for tipping, right? One interesting thing which I think of is, let's say Doge. You can think of it like people initially used to give, our parents used to give us pocket money, right? Now, this pocket money was actual money. We could go and do bad things with it. We could go and probably smoke a cigarette, or go to a liquor shop, take some liquor out there. But if there is a currency, let's assume it's probably Dogecoin or fun currency, which your parents are giving to you, and this currency is only accepted in certain area. It's not accepted in liquor stores. It's not accepted in pawn stores. It's accepted in certain things which are good for people under the age of 18, right? So you can buy food, you can go out with your friends for a movie or so, but it's restricted to use, right? So there are multiple use cases that could be built on top of it, and the Satoshi's vision is going along the world, right? There are millions and billions of people actually believing in it. But there's an enemy in this story, right? Because Satoshi's vision was against centralization, and who owns the centralization is the government, right? So now government are thinking, hey, we cannot let Satoshi, we don't know who that guy is, girl is, and we cannot let them, take over our whole power of these currencies, right? So we gotta do something, and 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 that is how they think. So now, how are governments viewing the future of money, right? So to understand that, the first thing that you need to understand is that the money in your bank does not equal to the money that you hold, right? Now think about it clearly, right? So when you hold a 100 rupee note, it says that it has the sign of a governor, and it says, I promise to pay the bearer the sum of 100 rupees. So if you go to RBI with this note, they'll say, okay, yes, you have 100 rupees, and that's the general consensus, right? But what happens is, if you give your money to the bank, it's basically was saying that, okay, uh, the liability is not on the bank. So if the bank loses that money, they are not liable to give it back to you, right? And that's the case. Well, it's a highly regulatory space, right? It's governed by the RBI. So most cases that might not happen, but there could be some things that these banks could be doing wrong, uh, which could basically make you lose your hard-earned money, right? So the money in your bank doesn't equal to the money you hold, because if the bank loses the money, the liabilities are not on them to give you back the amount, right? So all in all, if you hold a 100 rupee notes, that's your actual money that RBI or the government is liable to pay to you. If it's in bank, uh, and if the banks lose money, banks are not liable to give you the money because you didn't had that cash. Because what happens is, the government prints money in cash, right? So they're printing money in cash, and it's kind of became digital, but still the printing happens, right? And the printing cost is around 4 to 6 thousand years, 4 to 6 thousand crore a year, right? So this is an interesting thing, right? That you need to understand this first, that the government prints cash, and if you don't hold the cash, uh, the government is not liable to give you back your money. So even if you earned 10,000 crore and you put it in a bank, a fraud bank, which probably found a loophole in the RBI regulations, and it kind of used that money somewhere else and lost it, you don't have any way to get it back, right? And this is what in some sense happened in the 2008 financial crisis. So that's how it is now. What banks are doing, or what the central governments are doing, they're trying to create a central bank digital currency, right? Now, what is CBDC? The short form is CBDC, right? So let's understand CBDC, because this is interesting, because this whole story started with coins, paper note, barter system. Then kind of paper note, we found our modern money in paper notes and credit cards, UPI, which are built on top of the paper notes, right? So you have to understand that these are built on top of the paper notes. But it faced a challenge that Satoshi, we don't know who that guy is. He comes in and he shows the world, okay, this is Bitcoin. We might use this as money, and then people start reimagining money, and the governments don't like it. So they're still thinking what to do with it. So here comes the CBDCs. CBDCs, first you need to understand, central bank issue currencies digitally. They'll start issuing currencies digitally and not in cash, right? As I said, printing money every year costs around 4 to 6 thousand crore a year to our government, right? And if you don't hold the cash, the government is not liable to pay money to you. But with CBDCs, or central bank digital currency, central bank will issue currency digitally, or you can say using the blockchain technology or the distributed ledger technology, right? So basically, you'll have access to these currencies digitally, right? So you'll be directly interacting with the RBI, and they'll be issuing you money, and that money can be traced back digitally, right? It's not cash, it's digital. They're printing money digitally, right? So that's the difference, and you can understand the difference when you understand this, that the money in your bank is not not equal to the money you hold, right? So that's the case now. Digital ownership using blockchain technology, it can become very easy to trace money. So money laundering and all, governments can keep a track on top of it, because cash, they don't have access to it. If you remove your 1 lakh rupees from your bank account and use it in some illegal stuff, the government won't be able to know. But with these CBDCs, because it's digital, it can be tracked easily, right? So the moment you even take that money from your bank and pay it somewhere, it'll be traceable, right? So now governments like that, they like this concept of blockchain ledger technology, and they're coming back at it. They're thinking, okay, we are going to create our own CBDC, right? And that's how we are going to tackle this decentralized version, because they don't like the decentralized version. The reason being, it cannot be tracked. So money laundering can happen. It can be used for illegal activities, and there are various other reasons, right? The most important reason being, they don't want to lose the power of money, right? Governments have the power of creating money, of handling money, of circulating money. They don't want to lose that power, because that power is very critical for any government out there. So they are thinking of CBDCs. Now let's talk about what are the types of CBDCs. So there are like one tier CBDC system, or there could be a two tier CBDC system. The one tier CBDC system, the individual is directly interacting with the bank, right? And this is where the money that is issued, or the money that is printed digitally, is given to you. So it will be like an RBI app, an RBI app, where you'll keep a track of your money and all. Then there could be a two-tier CBD system, where basically bank issues or prints money digitally, but then it doesn't give it to you directly. It gives commercial banks the access to it, and then they sort of give it to you, right? So that's how the flow is. Now this requires more research and stuff. So in right now, all the countries are just focusing on this. They're trying to figure this out, and then slowly it will delve into this, right? Because the reason is, this will require much more work, because you have to work with so many different institutions, parties, commercial banks, and all. And there are two use cases of CBDCs: the retail and the wholesale. So as you can see, the wholesale 2019, 2020, 21, right? So the focus of work on wholesale is very low. Instead, general purpose or retailers, the focus is more. The simple reason being, they don't want to lose the general consensus to Bitcoin at the earliest, right? Because if the general people start believing in Bitcoin, if they start transacting in Bitcoin, if they start using Bitcoin as a store of value, then they lose the power. They lose the power of money, right? And that's not what they want. So they're coming up with retail. They're focusing on retail more, right? Now, which country is ahead in this? Of course, China. They did a pilot with one of their few of their cities, where what they did was they ran. So in their own central bank app, they randomly, through a lottery system, picked out people. And if you have the app, you'll get 30 yuan. You'll get 30 digital yuan. So this is not called yuan. This is called digital yuan or e-yuan, right? So our Indian rupee will not be called rupee, it will be called digital rupee, because it is being printed digitally up, right? Because of this system, right? The money in the bank is not equal to the money that you hold. So they started using it. They are trying piloting it out. What you can even do is, you don't even require internet sometimes. If you have a digital device, they are using near field communication technology. So if you go, so when you go to a shop, you just take out your wallet, pay the cash, and move out, right? Same thing can happen with this device. You don't require internet. You can just sort of put it out and pay for your stuff and go back, right? So they have plans to release it to, and kind of open it to more cities and more people. Now, why is China able to do that? The first thing is, to create a digital currency, you need digital penetration, or you need people using digital phones, digital devices more and more, which is very high in China. 92% of the urban use it, 49% of the rural use it. So they have good basis to build on top of it. And 71% of China's population have access to smartphone and all. Now this is how they are envisioning it. Now the concern of the future is, of course, privacy issues. So the government, they can track what did you buy, and and they can kind of track anything related to money once everything is on digital yuan, right? They can track it, but because what initially used to happen was your banks had the ledger, your banks had the power, right? So if the government wanted information, they go to your bank and they ask for the information. But this is not anymore the case. They have direct information, everything with them. And the other thing could be these money can come with an expiry. So government can also say, okay, I'm giving you 30 digital yuan, but you have to spend it in the next 1 year, right? Now the reason for this could be that to incentivize the economy, sometimes when the inflation is high or low, or on the state of the economy, it's sometimes feasible or more desirable for government that people spend more money, right? And it's difficult to do when it's in cash, right? So what people do right now, what the governments do right now is they increase and decrease tax slabs, right? You must have seen that. They have decreased tax slabs in EV, so they want more people spending money in EVs, right? So this could become easy with digital, because it can come with an expiry. They can say, okay, if you don't use this money, we are giving you 50 digital yuan. If you don't use this money in probably spending on EV, then this money will disappear, right? So the one more concern is that it can disrupt the banking industry. Now, why do you require a bank when all of this is happening, right? So that's China doing its thing on CBDCs. This is the general state of CBDCs. So you can say 9 have already launched in some form or the other, 9 countries. 15 are in their pilot mode, which are the green ones. These Russia, China is doing pilot. 16 are doing development. They have researched. They are developing their CBDC, and almost 40 countries are still researching on the concept, right? And India is still in the development phase. It's trying to figure that out. 7 have been inactive, 2 have cancelled their plan to open a CBDC. But this is the current status of this CBDC, right? And that brings us to the final of the future of money, right? So either it could be centralized bank currency, centralized digital currency, or it could be the decentralized version of currency which Satoshi envisioned. It could be Bitcoin, Ethereum, or all these other tokens. But Bitcoin is in the forefront right now. So it's basically Satoshi's vision versus what the government's vision of digital currency is. So, but the thing is, government have power, so they can control various things and they can kind of push the narrative around it, right? And yeah, and that is interesting because we'll have to see what happens next. Yeah, and yeah, we're coming to the end of the call. I don't know how many are still listening to this.
We have like the 60% of people already.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice, nice. So yeah, yeah, we just had a small favor to ask. So during our, we'll also take questions for sure.
Mhm.
I just have a small thing. Yeah. So what happened in our recent app was, we actually had a referral program, and some of these people, what they did was it got into some scammy Telegram link, and people started using it to extort money out of the app, right? Kind of faking the referral program, and that's when we had to stop it. And then what these people did was they started giving bad reviews. So I was just asking if you liked the session, if you liked, and if you thought you learned something, please go to the Play Store or the App Store, download the Stratzy app, and give it a genuine 5-star review if that's possible. But yeah, that's it from my side. Let's take more questions. Very interesting chats going on. Yeah, would love to,
Definitely, Mohit. Mohit, you can put
interact
a
with people.
link of the app so that it'll be easy for people.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'll just do that.
I'll do it. Maybe you can take the questions.
Sure. Yeah. Mohit, let's go for the questions, shall we?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
All right. Guys, send in your questions. We will start answering them. Okay. Okay. So here comes the first question, but what actually determines the value of digital currency? Centralized as well and decentralized. Why does why does its value fluctuate too much? He's questioning the volatility.
Correct. So what it gives it the value is basically the economy of that country, right?
Hmm.
So initially they were backed by gold, right? But what then happened was, as I said, there was a war that happened, and then they decided, okay, we're not backing it by gold anymore. We'll print our own money because we require money right now. I mean, required to push money. So they just stopped that. That was the first case of it. They were using something called a Brent's good system, and all of those things happened. But initially it was backed by gold, but then slowly what that shifted into was the economic transactions, right? So what happens right now? Think of it this way: why is USD or dollar the most valued currency or the most strongest currency? The reason being they are doing the most business in the world, right? So more and more people want to hold USD, right? Because there could be millions of people who want to buy some stuff from the US. They want to do more business with US, and that's why they require their currency, right? Because if someone wants to come and do business with us in India, they require a rupee, right? They require INR. So when the demand is more, the value of it goes up, right? So that's what gives it the value. Is basically the economic the whole economy which goes around the globe, right? So more and more people are having business with USA. They are doing great stuff. They have such great companies, right? So like Phase, all the biggest tech companies, everything is there itself. And that's why the currency fluctuates.
Got it. So, what's your opinion upon Russia claiming, let's say, making a claim that they're open for crypto as their future asset? What do you think?
Yeah, so we can see this, right? We have seen a couple of countries moving. One of them actually made Bitcoin a legal tender too, right? So as I said, these small countries, they don't have the resources, they don't have the power to actually kind of do all those monetary policies. They don't have the you can say resources to make sure that the currency stays stable, right? And that is what happened with Zimbabwe, Venezuela, right? So smaller countries which might slowly want to use Bitcoin, right? Now the option with them is either Bitcoin or USD, which is in many cases people are also making like their main currency becomes USD. So that is also happening. But then yeah, Russia could do that if the value of ruble decreases, and it has decreased a lot since the war started, right? I'm sure you all must have heard about the the value of ruble has decreased
I think it's a network discrepancy. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah. So let's go to the next question. Why do we have different currencies for different nations? So, as it has been previously mentioned by Mohit in one of the slides, Mohit, here's a question. Why do different come, Mohit, your
I
voice is
guess
getting.
your network is not good. I mean, you lagged in between.
yeah, I just reconnected.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool,
I
cool, cool.
just
Yeah,
You
it's
can
reconnected.
good now.
continue
It's
the
good
Is it
now.
answer.
better now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Correct. So the Russia could do that, right? And I said more small countries would be moving to that. Yeah, we were talking about the next question.
Yeah, so another question is, why do we have different currencies for different nations? And is it just about controlling the monetary value of the specific entity? Is there anything
Yeah.
above that?
Yeah. So as I said, right, initially the kingdoms they holded those coins and all, right, because they wanted the power key. We can control the monetary supply and everything in our own area. So that is the reason everyone has their own currency. The reason being we don't trust each other, right? Humans don't trust each other, and it happens at a large scale with countries, right? So like we don't trust Pakistan, they don't trust us, we don't trust other countries and all, and that's why everyone has their own currency, and then the value of that currency is determined by the economic activity happening in the country.
Got it, got it, got it. So, okay, how would you justify energy consumption with regards to, let's say, the utopian vision of going digital completely using a blockchain?
Correct. So there are a couple of aspects to this, right? I don't have the exact data, so I won't say which thing is good or which thing is bad. But certainly, a lot of money and energy is spent in handling the banking system. There are so many banks, so many people working on it, so many vehicles they might be using. Then mining itself, like gold mining, requires energy, it requires coal, and all of those things. We don't have the data, we don't understand how it'll be now. But surely our motive. I had seen somewhere that Bitcoin energy consumption is very less compared to some of the other activities that humans do, right? The mining energy that is being consumed. But then we also surely need to make sure that the energy consumption reduces, right? We move to renewable energies, and that is what is happening in US. Lots of these miners have been converted to renewable energy miners, right? They got listed on in their stock exchange, and this is something that we all should focus on. But then Elon Musk, he certainly has some great ideas about these two, right? So if we can sort of bring the renewable energy power into mining, we can bring down the energy consumption and make sure it's sustainable long term.
Of course. So in recent times, I have encountered with a company which does the same renewable energy to generate, let's say, people going, um, let's say, if you have a business, if you have a industry, and if you adopt something like let's say, building an infrastructure across the blockchain, the company makes sure that you're going to get additional benefits, let's say, in terms of the economic value, in terms of, let's say, the sustainability side of it. What is your opinion about this?
Uh, can you rephrase it? Like I
Sure.
am not sure if I
So,
understand it
yeah,
correctly.
there's this company which talks about, it sounds like credit at a point. They're like,
Mhm.
you do more transaction on our very platform, and we plant a lot of trees. They talk about
Okay.
sustainability on one side, and at the same time increased activity usage relating to overutilization of resources on the other. So how do you maintain a balance between these two?
Certainly, so we are at a point in climate change right now where
Hmm.
the things that we might be doing going ahead, they might become irreversible, right? So we have come at a point right now where basically our uh, our consumption, personal on a personal level, can actually make no impact. Uh, like even if you try to reduce your carbon imprint, we might not be able to save the planet, right? And that is why the first thing that is required there are that big corporates move to renewable, they move to more ESG compliant things, right? And that is something that we all should focus on. That is something which governments are coming into, right? So all of these, if you see the energy sector, all of these various sectors are moving towards green energy. They're trying to build
Hmm.
that ESG compliance over time. So certainly,
Okay.
I think the governments need to build certain. India is we are far behind right now, but surely Europe and other countries they have like developed much more in the ESG space, and India needs to do that as soon as possible. Otherwise, it'll be difficult for us to kind of
Definitely.
keep this planet as happy as it is.
Mm-hmm. Mohit, can we go for like two last questions? Let's say people wanted to ask themselves.
Yeah,
Okay. Ritik, I have one more
sure,
for
sure,
you.
sure, definitely.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks, Chandan. And hi, Mohit. Nice to see you.
Hey, Ritik.
So, yeah, I just use your app and I really amazed how you means find a problem. Like you're not a what we can say broker like Zerodha or something. You are just providing strategies and idea. And I really like that one, which is Vadilal. You put in that. So how you come across with
Oh,
that
exactly.
idea कि मुझे ये करना ही है, मतलब कि I can put it into monetization and इसको परस्यू कैसे किया, मतलब व्हेन यू आर स्टार्टिंग योर करियर, सो क्योंकि एक एडिट मतलब ऑनलाइन कुछ भी आपको वो करना तो आपको पता है इसमें मार्केटिंग भी जाएगा, फंड रेज भी करना पड़ेगा, तो काफी सारे ओवरवेलमिंग क्वेश्चंस होते हैं, तो उसको टैकल करके क्या विजन था और आगे क्या चल रहा है, मतलब कि कुछ एक्सपीरियंस पहले गेन किया हुआ था इस फील्ड में, या कैसे हुआ कि अब इसको वो ड्राइव क्या थी कि इसको लेके जाना है?
Correct. So yeah, I was a part of our finance club, Wall Street Club, and I eventually lead कर रहा था club. And there, what we used to do was we used to teach our juniors about stock markets, right? So I learned stock markets from my seniors, and I used to teach my juniors about stock markets. And वहां पे जाके हमें पता चला यार कि even though we are teach, and this was like the most famous club in the whole Bitskova campus, and there like more people were attending our lectures rather than other classes and lectures. So there were so many people, इतने सारे लोग पढ़ने आ रहे हैं स्टॉक मार्केट्स के बारे में, लेकिन स्टिल उनमें से बहुत कम लोग इन्वेस्ट कर रहे थे, राइट? तो इवन दो लोगों को समझ आ रहा था स्टॉक मार्केट्स क्या है, उनको चीजें समझ आ रही थी, उनको हमने इतना सब पढ़ा दिया, लेकिन इन्वेस्ट तब भी कम कर रहे थे. तो आई ट्राई टू डिग डीप इनटू अंडरस्टैंड कि यार द थिंग इज सबको टाइम एंड एफर्ट नहीं डालना होता है, एंड वी रिक्वायर सॉर्ट ऑफ हेल्प, right? So what happened was कि हमने एक दो बार ग्रुप्स में बातें करी, and we at that time what happened was there was a flood in Kerala or somewhere where due to which rubber production was impacted, and उसकी वजह से because rubber production was being impacted, the tire stocks were reacting to it, right? Because tire is made of rubber, and rubber is a raw material used to make tire, so tire stocks were reacting to it. So we posted that, and then many people started talking about it, they started investing, and it kind of made me feel कि यार सिर्फ एजुकेशन से नहीं होगा, you need to push people, you need to help them by giving them access to good investment opportunities, good research investment opportunity, right? And that is what will help the users invest more. And then we dig into the data, तो हमें पता चला यार डेटा में कि यार ब्रोकर्स के जो डीमैट होते हैं ना, उसमें मोर देन 90% इनएक्टिव होते हैं, राइट? तो अगर आप देखो एक ब्रोकर जो अकाउंट खुलवाता है, इतना हाई इंटेंट यूजर स्टिल 90% से ज्यादा इनएक्टिव है, क्यों? क्योंकि लोगों को हेल्प चाहिए इन्वेस्ट करने की, एंड व्हिच मेड मी परस्यू इट. आई हैड सम एक्सपीरियंस इन क्वांटिटेटिव रिसर्च. So I was working at a US-based hedge fund as a quantitative researcher, where my primary work was to make quantitative trading strategies for the US European markets. So that's how we understood कि यार the ultra rich, the rich people who have access to sophisticated investment products, उनके पास बहुत edge है market में rather than the retail investor. And I was on the side of the retail investors, and I said, we need to form some sort of an edge and give it to the retail segment. That is how we can create value for people. So if we can save people time and effort, we can provide some value to them. And if you are providing value to people, you can build a business, you can build a product, you can build a monetization plan around it. So Ritik, ऐसे ही almost हमारा start हुआ था.
Yeah, that's a great, means you see a problem and then just jump into it. And I also like your UI and UX, because how it is, color is good, logo is good. So you design it all as like you are just an builder, or you are also doing marketing, you are also creating your website and app. So, or you hire someone to do it. Means how you simplify that structure कि I'm starting, so मुझे ये चीजें खुद आती और ये चीजें मुझे आगे वो चाहिए काम.
Correct. Correct. यार इसमें दो तीन चीजें, right? I always say that being a founder, you always need to sell, right? And this is something जो investors भी देखते हैं कि are you able to sell your vision? So the first thing that you do, like the first selling that you do for your vision is actually people around you. So you talk to people and you make them believe कि यार ये जो problem मैं solve कर रहा हूँ, ये एक बहुत बड़ी problem है. If we can build something around this, this will turn into a very big business. This will turn into a very big startup, a very big company or institution. And come join me on board on this, right? So अगर आप एक अच्छे बंदे को ये समझा के on board करा पा रहे हो, right? So अगर कोई अपनी जॉब वॉब छोड़ के मेरे साथ काम करने आ रहा है क्योंकि मैं अपना विजन उसे सेल कर पा रहा हूँ, दिस इज अ वेरी ग्रेट इंडिकेशन, राइट? ये इन्वेस्टर्स भी देखते हैं कि आर यू एबल टू डू इट, एंड आई थिंक फाउंडर्स नीड टू डू दैट, राइट? एट द एंड ऑफ द डे 24 घंटे होते हैं, आपके पास लिमिटेड स्किल्स है, आप कितना ही कर सकते हो, राइट? But the thing here is to build a team which is passionate about a problem, build a team which is skillful, resourceful, and have an ability to learn about your problem statement more. So यार वैसे ही you start building your team and then slowly take it forward. सब कुछ आप नहीं कर सकते. You might have some expertise and वो expertise core होना चाहिए business का. If that is there, it's fine. It's good actually. क्योंकि core competency कोई एक direction दिखाने वाला होना चाहिए, right? So you have to be that person. So that is how I envision this.
Got it. I think that's the end of today's session, Mohit. Mohit, before you leave, would you want to say something to
Yeah,
the
I think
audience?
if Abhiram wants to talk, I think his hand is up.
One sec. I've
Abhiram,
requested Abhiram to unmute, but
Yes, I'm there. I'm there.
yes, okay.
hey,
I was waiting for everything to complete. Okay, so my question was, it's really straightforward. Is decentralization really possible? Because I've seen the video of Varun Maya. He explained why decentralization is not possible, and I also see many instances in the internet that we use today, where when we give everybody equal power to or let's say if we give a decentralized platform, they create a lot of noise. Everybody comes up with their own ideas, with their own judgments, and no, almost like less than 50% of information that you find on internet actually makes sense or is actually backed by facts. So don't you think if you do the same thing with currency or money itself, don't you think it is going to create a lot more noise? And we can already see people are coming with their own cryptocurrency, and there are hundreds of them, and it's really hard for us to even navigate through this cryptocurrency ecosystem itself. And there is this problem of gas fees and etc. So is
correct.
decentralization really
That's
possible? And or my actual question is
yeah.
decentralization really viable?
Mhm. Got it. Yeah, so there's a great article of Moxie. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. Search out Moxie article on Web3 or something, where he criticizes, how NFTs. Yeah, I'm just posting the link to this. So this is an amazing article, and he explains basically, how it's very difficult right now. जो NFTs वाला पूरा segment है, all of that is very very much centralized, right? And I think that's a great question. Can money actually become decentralized? So you have to think of it in two ways. First is, can it become decentralized by the consensus of it, right? What I mean by that is कि क्या हम सब मिलके मान सकते हैं uh, कि चलो हम बिटकॉइन को मनी मानते हैं, क्या वो चीज पॉसिबल है, right? That is one thing. The other thing is it technologically possible? Technologically क्या ये हो सकता है क्या कि हम ये चीज कर पाए? Because but Moxie says in an article is very important, क्योंकि वो बताता है कि NFT वगैरह end of the day centralized है, and उनको decentralized बनाने के लिए अभी हम technologically वहां तक पहुंचे ही नहीं है, right? And if you see, there's a Reddit post by Vitalik Buterin, who is the co-founder of Ethereum, to this criticism by Moxie, where he explains the pathway which he thinks we need to follow to reach technologically decentralization. ठीक है, तो फर्स्ट स्टेप तो ये कि अगर टेक्नोलॉजिकली हम पॉसिबल कर पाएंगे डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन, फिर बात आएगी कि उसको हम सेफ नेट कैसे करें, रेगुलेट कैसे करें, कैसे उसको एक सेफ एनवायरनमेंट बनाए कि वो चीज एक्चुअल में पॉसिबल हो पाए. तो so is it possible or not? I never like to say anything is impossible. So I believe it could be possible, right? But the thing is, we'll have to wait and watch, right? And we'll have to probably wait and watch for like many years to see kya hota hai aage. But I would definitely recommend to read this Moxie article, and also the Vitalik post on Moxie article. I don't have the link for it, but Reddit पे देखना, Vitalik का इस Moxie के उस पे ना, he has given his views, and he has given a pathway, uh, and I don't have the technological capability to understand those things at the fullest, but he has some ideas, and he is thinking it's technologically possible. तो अगर वो हो पाएगा तो probably we might see decentralization, but I think there is no correct answer. It'll be a hybrid, right? So there will be some centralization, some decentralization. Some things might get decentralized, some things might not get decentralized. and hybrid is the way possibly makes the most practical sense to me.
Correct, correct, correct.
Yeah, thank you, Mohit. Thanks for clarification.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Mohit. Thanks for the session. Thanks a lot.
Yep, it was great. Yeah, great interacting with all of you. Thank you so much for joining in. Hope you guys learned something.
Absolutely. Uh, Mohit, thanks a lot for coming. And before we end, I want to say that like over the course of next 6 days, we have like amazing sessions planned up, and this is like a continuous process. And Mohit, again, the level to which you started the story and you brought it up was like a really, really good way of explaining everything, and really appreciate your effort, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohit, for
No
coming
worries.
in.
It is always great to be a part of this community. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Ritik. Thank you, Chetan. All right. See you guys. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Great. I'll just end the session, guys. Thank you for joining.